Imagine discovering that a lot of your most wildest conspiracy theories were actually real. From mind control experiments to psychic spies, the government has been keeping secrets for decades. And when those documents finally get declassified, the truth is way freakier than fiction. Now, whether you believed it worked or not is up to you, but the fact that the CIA actually spent time and money and investments on psychic espionage is wild enough. What's good in the YouTube hood? It's your girl Luna Nova, and I'm back with another one for y'all today. Welcome back to the Mystic Views, where we dive into the creepy, the mysterious, and the misunderstood. And today we're pulling back the curtain of the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency. If you don't already know, the CIA was created in 1947, right after World War II in the early days of the Cold War. And with this new government agency, what exactly was their purpose and role? Their job was to collect intelligence, running covert operations, protecting the U.S. from national security breaches. But here's the thing, over the years, they've been caught doing some really sketchy things. I'm talking questionable missions and experiments. And thanks to the Freedom of Information Act, a lot of those secrets have been forced to come to the light. And one little secret that I'll give you guys, I love searching things on the CIA website because there's a lot of information that you wouldn't think that was public that actually is. So let's go ahead and get into the three most creepiest cases, in my opinion anyway, that the CIA has officially declassified. Now, first up is Project MKUltra. I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys have heard about this one. This one is definitely a popular one throughout the conspiracy theory community. In the 1950s and 60s, the CIA carried out experiments on unwitting people. I'm talking college students, prisoners, sometimes even their own agents, using LSD and other drugs. And the purpose of them doing these experiments was to see if they can control minds, erase memories, or even create sleeper assassins. Yeah, that's a real thing. And these experiments were so intense that they left people traumatized, and some people never fully recovered. And these declassified documents not only show that it was science, but it was proof that it actually happened. Now, for one of my personal favorites, the Gateway Process. In 1983, the CIA studied techniques like hypnosis, meditation, and frequencies with the hopes that it would change or alter consciousness. So basically, they were trying to train people to reach an outer body status, astral project if you will, and even travel to other dimensions. Now, in one of these documents, reports claim that humans could escape time and space itself, tapping into the fabric of the universe. And of course, this document got way stranger after that, because it disappeared from public records before resurfacing years later. And yes, you can go ahead and find it now on the IRS website. Now let's talk about the Stargate Project, and I'm not talking about the famous early 2000s TV series, because yes, I absolutely love that series. That is one of my favorite comfort shows to go ahead and put on, because me and my dad loved it. Yes, I am a sci-fi nerd. But I'm talking about the Stargate Project that refers to a remote viewing. Now, the CIA conducted these experiments on psychics in the hopes that they could use their talents to again remote view, and that is to use the ability to see beyond where you physically are. Again, the government will use these psychics to describe different locations and times and events that were happening in other states and even across the globe. Declassified documents actually show that the CIA hired psychics to spy on the Soviets. And not just spy on them, but to track down some of their hostages, and even use these psychics to describe what was going on Mars. Now, whether you believe it works or not, just know that the CIA definitely used public coin to fund this project. So what do you guys think? Do you think that it was actually something that worked, or do you think it was just a waste of the government and taxpayers' money? Because if so, I'm gonna need some of that back. Y'all already know what time it is. Go ahead and grab you a drink, grab you a snack, and let's go ahead and get into these crazy CIA declassified documents.
The CIA worked with witches at one point to try to harness their power, and it's believed that they probably are still doing this. While they were telling the public that witches were not real, they were actively trying to harness their magic and their manipulation of energy on behalf of the United States. In 1968, Operation Often was launched by an MKUltra scientist named Dr. Sidney Gottlieb. And here's the thing, the CIA didn't just try to harness magic. They hired practicing witches and occultists as consultants. There are declassified documents that show that there was $375,000 allotted for anomalous practice research. On top of trying to figure out if magic was real, they were also trying to learn if demons were real, and if so, if they could be harnessed. They began doing experiments that they called projected malevolence, where practicing witches and occultists would target foreign leaders, and 3 of the targets died under mysterious circumstances within 6 months. Houston experiments were next, and in these, the CIA wanted to know if witches could influence biological matter from far away. These witches would target bacteria cultures in sealed containers 50 miles away. And guess what? The lab results showed a 23% increase in bacterial death rate. The technical reports called it non-local consciousness effects on biological systems, but the CIA called it magic. One of the most fascinating parts of Project Often to me is that they found that certain bloodlines had heightened paranormal capability. They created a database, which is unfortunately still classified, of families with psychic abilities running throughout the generations. They also paid special attention to people who claimed they were descendants of Salem witch trial survivors and also had these abilities. Documents reference MK Often bloodline and hereditary consciousness factors. They were trying to breed psychic super soldiers. The program officially ended in 1973, but a former Often psychic claimed that it continued until 1981 under corporate contracts. Private military contractors will now hire anomalous warfare specialists. This is what they call psychics, witches, anybody with what they would deem a supernatural ability. Job listings that would include remote influence capabilities would sometimes be found on these contractor websites. These are not job listings looking for drone pilots. They are looking for corporate witches to continue this very special type of warfare. As a side note, there is a very strong theory that the government has a coven of witches that protects it, and that's why most normal, everyday witches, such as myself, would not be able to curse the government. And I'd be willing to bet money that they found at least some of those witches while they were doing Project Often.
Well, the scientists that were assigned to researching him started having the hitchhiker effect in their homes and their families. The branch of the CIA called MK Often, and this branch, that was their thing, was that they got into the occult and esoteric, pretty much kind of like the Ahnenerbe was the Nazis' version. You know, they had several things like the Thule Society and Vril, but it was the Ahnenerbe who was really steeped in the occult as well as the Vril. But yeah, MK Often, I mean, they would infiltrate seances. They would send members into seances. They actually openly talked with witches, active witches. In fact, one of the most well-known witches, this well-known witch was Sybil Leek. This lady, she was so well-known that H.G. Wells, Lawrence of Arabia, and Aleister Crowley all used to visit her back when she was 9 years old. Her family was that connected. In fact, when MK Often was dealing with her and approaching her, she would tell them where the most active covens were, all the different locations of witches and covens all around the world. I mean, you know that also, what was it, Crowley and several of his colleagues, they all worked with British intelligence. So that's another thing, is like a lot of these people that are steeped in the occult and witchcraft and things like that, and demonic and satanic rituals, also have a lot to do with spies and spy agencies. That she witnessed satanic rituals going on out at military bases. And she said that a lot of the people that are mixed up in the naval intelligence, not all of them, but a lot of them, are mixed up with the OTO, the Ordo Templi Orientis.
There was programming. They used military bases because they won't have any interference when they have someone on a military base. And a lot of my programming took place on military bases. I would like to talk about the fact that there are rituals done at the military bases also, and that rituals are not a cover. The people that do the mind control are involved, and rituals are very much a part of how they do things.
I don't know if you've read the book about Laurel Canyon. Have you read any of that stuff and looked into it? Oh man, yeah, the whole hippie movement. And I touched a little bit on this because people like Timothy Leary, who was big on promoting LSD and things like that, this was all part of the CIA and their MK Ultra, as well as MK Often and all that. In fact, this goes all the way back to Edgewood Arsenal, and they needed a giant pool of test subjects, so they were using the American public as guinea pigs. They've been dealing with they've been initiating satanic rituals at all levels of government. because they are trying to tap into these things. They want to make contact. It's no different than John Dee back when he was the person that worked for Queen Elizabeth.
We can travel to any point in history to see what really happened. How? It's through astral projection, where your spirit leaves your body. There are people out there sensitive enough to travel to history. Anyone can do it, actually. We have a 29-page document explaining how. Okay, how? We start out with headphones, where one ear has one frequency and the other ear has a different frequency. Okay, using frequencies. Human body naturally has a frequency, but this disrupts it a little bit. Okay. When the blood is ejected from the left ventricle, it goes into the aorta. Okay. The pressure goes down into your abdomen and then leaps back up, and the two pressures themselves create this space where you can actually eject from your body. You're gonna have to be more descriptive than that, because that doesn't make any sense. It's a 20-page document, but here's the diagram of how it works. So like, I could learn how to do this. If you follow the guide, then yes, it's not an extra ability you have or anything. It's just normal human ability. Okay, I get astral projecting to like another place that is currently on Earth, but how do you astral project to history? Time is not linear. If you can travel to any point in history, then you can know what the winning lotto numbers are. And you can manipulate the past. Would I show up in history like a human being, like a solid mass of a human being? Most of the time, no. They just show up in spirit form, so people don't really see them sometimes. So at any point, someone from the future could be astral projecting to my room, and I would not see them.
Are you familiar with the Adam and Eve story? I'm not talking about the story in the Bible. I'm talking about the book written by Chan Thomas that's part of this declassified document by the CIA. Chan Thomas was an electrical engineer that also claimed to be psychic. And essentially he talks about how every 6,500 years, a cataclysmic, life-ending event happens on the Earth.
Jesus Christ, the Adam and Eve video. I watched a video on that this morning. There could be a time where the magnetic poles actually shift.
This is science. They say that the last one was like 778,000 years ago, and we're like something like 200,000 years overdue. But the Adam and Eve story, the theory of that is that it happens in cycles of 6,500 years, and that it's a 90-degree flip, but 6 days later, or on the 7th day, it corrects itself.
Planet flips.
Correct. It's a planet flip 90-degree, and that because of it, the Earth essentially doesn't stand still. The sun will be basically stay in the same spot, causing heating like we've never experienced, and that the wind and the waters continue with their momentum, because essentially the wind travels at approximately 1,000 miles an hour at the equator. So the theory is that when that event happens, it's going to be cataclysmic.
In his document, he lists lots of evidence, in his opinion, of the world giving a silent testimony of these events happening. Things like, you know, a mammoth frozen in mud with buttercups in its mouth. You have the end of the work that just stopped in the prehistoric city of Tiahuanaco in Peru around those years. He talks about the uninterrupted evolution on the Galapagos over 11,000 years. In his opinion, Genesis was 4.5 million years ago. Regenesis is 11,500. And then he goes on to put the book of Genesis in with his interpretations in the beginning 4.5 billion years ago. I'll include the link below. He brings up a couple of other stories. One comes from Hinduism, where essentially you have this messenger of Vishnu that is describing to a king how he has seen these cycles. He's seen the world arise and vanish again, like a tortoiseshell coming out of an infinite ocean. The document stating that we know that the end of the world is coming. My question is, why did the CIA take this public book and classify it, only to be declassified with the Freedom of Information Act? That's what I don't understand. Anyways, love you, bye.
A lot of you have realized that you've been remote viewing your entire life, but the CIA's research didn't just stop there. The same project that proved that remote viewing was real also proved a more advanced gift: timeline shifting. Think of it as this: remote viewing is the ability for you to move your consciousness across space to see a different location that is not familiar to you or you just can't see in your direct vicinity. However, timeline shifting is completely different. That is the ability to cross your consciousness across space, time, and probable realities. They are two sides of the same coin, non-local consciousness, and the CIA was obsessed with figuring out how to tap into this gift. In the CIA's Declassified Gateway Process report, they actually break down different mind states into focus levels. For example, focus level 10, that's a state of your mind being awake but your body is asleep, which is the perfect mind state for remote viewing. But then things get really weird. Focus 12, 15, and 21 are the conscious levels where you are no longer bound by space and time. The document actually says that these were the levels that people were starting to access information from the past and the future, and also alternate probable realities. The CIA knew that once you remove consciousness out of your physical body and went across space, remote viewing, that would just be the first barrier, that time would be next. They weren't just training for psychic spies, they were training multidimensional informants. That means if you've done remote viewing, that's not all that you're capable of doing. That's just the tip of the iceberg. You can actually start to navigate different realities the more that you practice it.
Okay, so do you guys remember how the CIA had declassified these documents where they were talking about astral projection, the holographic universe? They were talking about how they recruited these people to kind of teach them how to tap into these different states of consciousness, and how there was this whole page 25 that was missing from the whole thing. So that page 25 basically ties everything together. So this whole thing with the CIA was happening back in the 80s, and these documents didn't get declassified until maybe like the late 1990s or the early 2000s. And what's crazy is it wasn't even the CIA that was conducting this research. It was the U.S. Army. So this was basically called the Gateway Process. And the whole document was written by a U.S. Army lieutenant. His job was basically to provide an assessment of the whole gateway experience to his superiors. In the first few pages, when he's writing to his superiors, you can tell he's writing in a very scientific way, in a way that they're going to understand it, and in a way where he knows that it sounds crazy because it's something way beyond human comprehension. So it all started with astral projection, and they started to research the human body, the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and what would happen if both of the brain hemispheres were synchronized, the right and the left. So after they figured out the whole astral projection thing, they started to wonder whether they can transcend space and time through astral projection. It basically came to the conclusion that not only is astral projection real, but there are multiple realities. They came to the conclusion that our consciousness is not just in our brain. This is something that could also be projected outside of the body. That our brains are basically like a processing center gathering information. And that basically we're living in a holographic universe. A hologram that's made of energy waves that basically come together to form what we perceive as our physical reality. The reason why page 25 was missing is because it's talking about how we are the universe experiencing itself in many different forms, many configurations. We're all just focus points of consciousness. In this page, they refer to God, Source, the Creator, the universe as absolute. They refer to him as him, like literally him. It says absolute as the model around which the evolution of time-space revolves to ultimately attain a reflection of and in union with him. That thought model, which perfectly reflects the essence or spirit of the absolute, fits the Christian metaphysical description of the Holy Spirit. I believe that the reason why this page was missing is because it's very controversial, because it's basically explaining our existence. It's talking about the true nature of reality. This is the whole page 25 right here. So this whole thing is very controversial and very complex to understand. And maybe they hid it because we human beings seem to always reject anything that is like way beyond our human comprehension. Now, I don't know if you guys are into esoteric knowledge, if you're into ancient esoteric wisdom, but there's these two books that basically have the same concept. And I just so happen to have a series on both of these books. The first one is the Kabbalion, when it's talking about how the universe is mental and we're all just little focus points of consciousness. And then Ra and the Law of One, basically talking about how we are all just one living being and how separation is basically an illusion. Reading that missing page 25 kind of makes me want to dive deeper into the whole thing. Now, whether you believe it worked or not is up to you, but the fact that the CIA actually spent time and money and investments on psychic espionage is wild enough. So, of course, I have to ask you guys, what do you think? Were these just desperate Cold War experiments? Or does the government know more about the potential of the human body than they're leading on? If you guys enjoyed today's video, let me know down in the comments, because this was only a tiptoe into the declassified documents, because when I say the rabbit hole can go deeper, I promise. Let me know about any other declassified documents that I didn't mention in this video that I can go ahead and make a part 2, because I definitely want to bring some more for you guys. We all know the government isn't honest about a lot of the things that they tell us and the things that they force us to digest. So make sure that you keep your mind open, keep that third eye available to see past what they try to tell us. But until next time, make sure that you drink your water, mind your business, and stay ready and protected. And as always, Luna loves you. I'll be back with another video for you guys if the spirits allow it.
When I give that back, wait, give it right back, did they give it right back? This up, baby, can I sit right back? Wanna give it right back, baby, yeah, like that,